You know that sound? Your heartbeat pounding in your ears, footsteps getting closer, one wrong move, and it's over. That's what great stealth games do. They make you slow down, breathe quieter, think smarter. Every shadow feels alive, every corner could betray you. So, this isn't some petty list full of forgettable picks. These are stealth games that actually respect your time. The ones where slipping past an entire room untouched feels 10 times better than kicking the door in. If you love that tension, you're in the right place. Metal Gear Solid 5 The Phantom Pain. Metal Gear Solid 5 The Phantom Pain, this game, it is something else entirely. It is quite literally the best playing stealth game ever made in my opinion, and I don't think anything has even come close to dethroning it since it came out. The story is kind of a mess, it feels unfinished, it's got that classic Kojima VNS where you're not sure if he's a genius or just high on something important, but the actual act of playing this video game is pure euphoria. It is the gold standard. Most stealth games, they kind of hold your hand and force you into this very rigid box where you have to play exactly how the developer wants you to play. You're sitting there crouching behind a waist high wall for 10 minutes waiting for a guard to walk in a circle like a robot with a lobotomy, but here, the stealth is so fluid. It is unbelievably responsive. You control Venom Snake, and he moves exactly how you want him to move. You can dive, you can roll, you can crawl on your back and aim between your legs. It feels like you're actually a legendary soldier and not just some guy fighting the controls. The Fox engine is a marvel and it's a tragedy that Konami is just letting it rot in a dungeon somewhere. The enemy AI is actually intelligence, which is actually rare. Usually in these games, the enemies are about as smart as a bag of rocks. But here they learn. They actually adapt to how you play. If you are the guy who just sits on a hill and snaps everyone in the head every single mission, the enemies are going to start wearing helmets. If you attack at night constantly, they start equipping night vision goggles and setting up more lights. It forces you to actually switch up your tactics and use the tools the game gives you. And there are so many tools. You can use a cardboard box to slide down hills. You can use your horse to poop on the road to make enemy jeeps spin out of control, which is a legitimate strategy, by the way. You can just use the Fulton recovery system to kidnap literally everyone, too. That is the most addicting loop I've ever experienced. You just run around attaching balloons to soldiers, sheeps, tanks, shipping containers, and watching them fly into the sky while the guy screams. It kind of turns the game into this weird Pokemon collection ton where you're trying to find the soldier with the best stats to kidnap him and force him to work for you at your base. It's goofy, sure, but it fits into the gameplay loop perfectly. And even when you mess up, the game doesn't punish you by making you reload immediately. You have that reflex mode where the time slows down for just a second, giving you a chance to pop the guy before he alerts the whole base. It makes you feel cool, it keeps the flow going, and it stops it from becoming a frustrating trial and error fest. MGS5 is truly a sandbox in the truest sense of the word. You can approach any outpost from any angle with any loadout, and the game just goes and says, well, go for it. You want to go in with a rocket launcher and blow everything up? Well, fine, you can do it. You want to use a water pistol to short circuit the electronics and sneak past everyone like a ghost? Well, you can do that too. It respects your time, it respects your intelligence, and it's just genuinely fun to play every single second you're in it. It's a masterpiece of mechanics, and this is the peak. Hitman World of Assassination. It's arguably the greatest stealth sandbox ever created, and I don't say that lightly. Most stealth games are all about hiding in the shadows, waiting for a guard to turn around so you can scurry past them like a rat in a restaurant kitchen. But Hitman is different. It's social stealth. You aren't hiding in a cardboard box, you're hiding in plain sight. Wearing a flamingo mascot suit while attending a high stakes race car event, it turns murder into a puzzle, and it's really wholesome in its creativity, which says a lot about me, I guess. The sheer volume of content here is staggering. It's like they took three full games, well, they kinda did, and mashed them together and said, here, go nuts. And the stealth mechanics are just, they're perfect for this type of game. It's not about twitch reflexes or being a ninja, it's about patience and being a manipulative psychopath. You walk into a room, you see a target, and you have about 50 different ways to take him out. You can shoot him, sure, but that's boring, that's vanilla. Why shoot him when you can lose in a chandelier, poison their drink with rat poison so they go to the bathroom and then drown him in the toilet? Or replace their exploding golf ball with a real one? The game encourages you to be the most creative Grim Reaper possible. And the disguise system is the bread and butter here. You knock a guy out, steal his clothes, and suddenly you're the chef. You're the security guard, but the game is smart about it. It has these enforcers, specific NPCs who can see through a disguise because, yeah, the head chef probably knows who his sous chef is and he realizes it's not the 6'2" bald white guy with the barcode on the back of his head. It creates this constant tension where you're walking through a crowd trying to act normal, sweating bullets because one guy with a white dot over his head is looking at you a little too closely. It's thrilling, it makes you feel like a spy in a way no other game really captures. The levels themselves are absolute masterpieces of design. I'm not exaggerating when I say these are some of the best maps in gaming history. Places like Sapienza or Paris are dense. They are lived in. There are hundreds of NPCs all doing their own thing, having conversations, living their lives completely unaware that you are about to drop a moose statue on someone's head. The clockwork nature of the AI is hilarious but essential. You learn the pattern. You know that at 12:05 p.m., the target drinks his water. At 12:10, he yells at his assistant. It allows you to set up these Rube Goldberg machines of death. They're just so satisfying to pull off. And when things go wrong, and they will go wrong because you're a freaking goober, the chaos is fantastic. Throwing a homing briefcase at a guy's head while running away in a clown suit is peak gaming. Then you also have this freelancer mode, which takes all of this and turns it into a roguelike. It strips away the saves coming. You can't just save before kill and reload if you mess up. If you die, you lose your gear. You lose your money. It raises the stakes to an uncomfortable level. It forces you to improvise, to use tools you normally won't touch, and it makes every successful extraction feel like you just pulled off the heist of the century. Honestly, it breathes infinite life into a game that was already massive. It's just an endless playground of assassination if you like stealth, if you like puzzles, or if you just like slapstick comedy involving deadly weapons. This is the Grand Slammy. It is the exceptional. Next game is Splinter Cell Chaos Theory. If you look up stealth in the dictionary, it should be just a picture of Sam Fisher wearing those iconic trifocal goggles, probably holding a knife to some poor guy's throat. It's tragic, honestly, looking at this game and realizing that Ubisoft used to be capable of making something this competent, this polished, and this soulful. It makes modern Ubisoft games look like they were coded by a room full of monkeys banging on typewriters hoping to accidentally write Shakespeare. This game is from 2005 and it still mechanic checks almost every single game released in the last 2 decades. The stealth here is pure, unfiltered anxiety, like really awesome. It relies on this light and sound meter system that's just genius. It gives you actual information. You aren't guessing if you're hidden. The game tells you exactly how visible you are and exactly how much noise you're making. And the movement speed, oh my god, the movement speed on PC, you control your speed with the mouse wheel. You can dial it down to a snail's pace where you're moving slower than a tectonic plate to make sure you don't make a single decibel of noise on broken glass. It gives you this granular control over your character that makes you feel like you're actually inhabiting the suit. You aren't just pressing a sneak button, you're actually managing your presence in this world. And Sam Fisher in this game is an absolute savage. This was the first game in the series where they gave him a knife and it changed everything. Before, you were just elbowing people in the back of the head like a drunk uncle at a barbecue. Now you're grabbing him, putting a blade to their neck, and dragging him into the shadows. The interrogations are legendary. The writing is so sharp, so witty. Sam is just this grumpy, cynical dad who is completely done with everyone's crap. You grab a guard, and the dialogue is actually funny. It adds so much personality to a genre that is usually super serious and dry. You actually want to grab people just to hear what Sam is going to say to them before he knocks them out. Also, I think the level design is just perfect. The bank mission that's the gold standard. It's the perfect heist level. You're dodging lasers, hacking computers, cutting power, using thermal vision to see key codes on pads. It makes you feel smart. It doesn't hold your hand. It doesn't have big yellow paint splashes telling you, "Climb here, stupid." You have to use your brain, you have to observe the patrols, you have to actually be a spy. Wow. And the soundtrack by Amon Tobin, it's absolute gas. It's this great, glitchy, tense electronic music that perfectly matches the vibe of sneaking through a rainy lighthouse or a cargo ship. And I have to mention the co-op. The co-op in this game is chaos incarnate. It requires actual teamwork. You have to boost each other up walls, rappel down elevator shots together, but inevitably, you or your friend is going to mess this up. Trip a laser and turn the mission into a frantic shootout where you both die instantly. Because Sam Fisher has the durability of a wet paper towel in a gunfight. It's beautiful. Chaos Theory isn't just a good Splinter Cell game, it's one of the greatest video games ever made, especially stealth. It stands the test of time effortlessly. Dishonored 2. Dishonored 2 is essentially a playground for psychopaths who like to solve puzzles with murder, and it's arguably the best immersive game ever made. It's a tragedy that this genre is dying out because Arcane really hit a grand salami with this one before they fall off a cliff. The game drops you into these massive, intricate levels and just tells you to figure it out. There are no wrong answers here, only varying degrees of chaos and body counts. You can play the entire game without killing a single person, stinking around like a ghost that's afraid of its own shadow. Or you can walk into the front door and turn everyone into ash with supernatural powers. The freedom here is actually overwhelming at first because you aren't used to a game respecting your intelligence this much. The level design is the real star of the show. The Clockwork Mansion is a technical marvel that puts other studios to shame. You pull a lever, and the entire house resembles itself like a giant wooden Rubik's Cube. Walls shift, floors drop out, and new rooms appear. It isn't a gimmick, it completely changes how you navigate the space and how you approach your targets. You can slip between the walls and crawl through the gears to bypass security, seeing the skeleton of the house while the guards are patrolling the fancy rooms. Then you have the level where you can travel back and forth in time instantly to solve puzzles and sneak past guards in two different eras simultaneously. It is mind boggling how much effort went into making these spaces feel real and reactive. The stealth mechanics are fluid and give you an absurd amount of control. You have so many options for mobility that walking feels obsolete. If you play as Emily, you get the far reach ability which lets you slingshot yourself across the map. Her domino power is probably the most fun ability in any stealth game. You can link the fates of multiple enemies together, so if you shoot one in the head, the other three guys laying to him also die instantly. It makes clearing a room feel like setting up a row of dominoes and knocking it down. It's extremely satisfying to link a guard to his own captain and then just choke the captain out, watching the subordinate drop unconscious from across the room without ever touching him. The AI is sharper on high difficulties. They don't just stand there when they see a dead body, they panic, they search, and they coordinate. But the game gives you enough tools to make him look like idiots if you're good enough. You can stop time, possess a rat, rewire their security systems to incinerate them, or just throw a glass bottle to distract him and slip by. The chaos system adds a nice layer of consequence to your actions. If you go around slaughtering everyone, the world gets darker, more rats appear, and the characters treat you like the monster you are. It makes your choices feel like they actually matter to the world state, not just the ending cutscene. Now, yeah, it isn't some perfect game. The story is pretty standard revenge fodder with the voice acting for the main character can be a little wooden at times, and at launch, the performance on PC was absolute hot garbage. It's mostly fixed now, but it still has its moments of shank. However, none of that really matters when the gameplay loop is this strong. Dishonored 2 is a masterclass in design that rewards creativity and patience. It is one of those games you can replay 10 times and still find new routes or new ways to torment the gods. It is exceptional. Next game is Thief 2. This is the grandfather of the entire genre, and frankly, it's embarrassing that a game from the year 2000 still understands stealth better than almost every AAA title released to today. You have to get past the graphics first because let's be real, it looks like a freaking game from 2000s. So there's that. The characters look like blocky potato people and the textures are muddy enough to stick a pig in. But if you can look past the visuals, you'll find the most mechanically deep and rewarding stealth experience ever made. It doesn't hold your hand, it doesn't give you a magical radar that shows you where every enemy is through the walls, and it definitely doesn't play the game for you. You are on your own, and that is why it's so good. So the entire game is built around sound. In most games, sound is just there for atmosphere, but in Thief 2, sound is your life. You're constantly listening to footsteps of guards to figure out where they are, what surface they are walking on, and how close they are to finding you. Different surfaces make different noises. Walking on tiles or metal is a death sentence, while carpet is your best friend. This forces you to actually pay attention to the environment instead of just sprinting everywhere like a headless chicken. You have to move slow, you have to be deliberate, and you have to use your equipments to manipulate the world. The mouse arrow is one of the coolest tools in gaming history. You shoot it at a loud surface and it grows a patch of moss that silences your footsteps. You're literally creating your own stealth path. Then there are the water arrows. You aren't just shooting guys in the head, you are shooting torches to put them out and create shadows. The light gem at the bottom of the screen is your only indicator of how visible you are. It's simple, it's effective, and it communicates everything you need to know without cluttering the screen with a million UI elements. You spend most of your time huddled in the dark corner, praying a guard doesn't walk 2 inches closer, and the tension is palpable. The guards actually have personality too. They monitor themselves, they complain about their bosses, and they have conversations that give you clues about the level. The writing for the main villain, Karus, is also fantastic. He's this annoying, screeching religious zealot that you just desperately wants to rob blind. The level design is massive. The mission, Life of the Party, is basically an open world level before open worlds were a standard thing. You are traversing the rooftops of an entire city, breaking into a massive tower called Angel Watch. The verticality is insane. You are using rope arrows to climb up to wooden beams, dropping down onto balconies, and sneaking through windows. The game gives you a map, but it's vague and incomplete because Garrett, the main character, drew it himself. It forces you to actually explore and learn the layout of the building instead of just following a waypoint marker like a GPS in a minivan. It respects your intelligence and trusts you to figure out how to get from point A to point B without a big yellow glowing arrow. Now, it is a slow burn, it isn't a game for people who need constant explosions and dopamine hits every few seconds. It demands patience, you'll spend minutes just sitting off the dock, waiting for a patrol pattern to open up so you can slip by, but when you pull off a heist without anyone ever knowing you were there, it is incredible feeling. You feel like Master Thief not because the game told you that you are, but because you actually earned it. Thief 2 is pretty ugly, clunky, and old, but it's also a masterpiece that puts modern stealth games to kind of shame. Is the real deal. Next is Mark of the Ninja Remastered. This is arguably the best 2D stealth game ever made, and it puts a lot of 3D games to shame because it understands exactly what makes stealth satisfying. This feels like a high budget ninja simulator. It boils the entire genre down to its absolute essentials and cuts out all the fat. It's lean, mean, and it's incredibly violent. The best thing this game does is visualization. In most games, you are guessing if a god can hear you or see you. You just crouch and pray to whatever god you believe in that the AI doesn't decide to turn around. Here, the game shows you everything. Sound is visualized as blue rings. If the ring touches a god, he hears you. If you're in the light, you're visible. If you're in the dark, you're invisible. Wow, my bad. It's binary. It removes the guesswork and replaces it with pure strategy. You know exactly what you can get away with, which allows you to play aggressively. You aren't timingly creeping around, you are sprinting, grappling, and sliding because you know exactly where the limit is. The movement is tighter than a fresh jar of pickles, you stick to the walls, hang from ceilings, and grapple between vents with zero friction. You feel cool just moving around the map, and the kills are satisfying as heck. You can sneak up on a guy and execute him, or you can dangle him from a lamppost to terrify his friends. The tire mechanic is hilarious. You throw a dead body at the guard, he freaks out, starts shooting wildly, and maybe kills his own teammate in confusion. You feel like a predator toying with its food. And also, the art style kind of looks like a Saturday morning cartoon if all the animators were all sociopaths. It's got this slick, hand drawn look that flows really well. The remaster basically just made everything look crisp in 4K and clean up the audio, which was already good. It didn't need to do much because the core game was already fantastic. There's also a lot of replay value because of the different suits and playstyles you can unlock. So you can unlock a suit that makes you completely silent but removes your sword, forcing you to play purely non lethal. Or you can use the Path of Nightmares to just scare everyone to death. It rewards you for actually mastering the system instead of just brute forcing your way through. It's an absolute sleeper of a game. It respects your time, it makes you feel powerful, and it never feels unfair. If you get caught, it honestly is 100% on you because you messed up. It's the perfection in 2D form. Deus Ex Human Revolution. This game is the definition of cool. It drips with style from the black and gold aesthetic to the soundtrack, which is arguably one of the best electronic scores ever put in a video game. You play as Adam Jensen, a security chief who gets turned into a cyborg against his will and decides to deal with his trauma by punching people through walls and breaking into every office in Detroit. It manages to revive the immersive genre that the original Deus Ex started without feeling like a pale imitation. It stands on its own two cybernetic legs and delivers an experience that is incredibly satisfying to play. Now, the stealth here is fantastic because it utilizes a hybrid perspective. You're in first person most of the time, but when you snap to cover, it pulls back to third person. This gives you a clear view of your surroundings and lets you plan your next move without having to stick your head out and get spotted. It feels fluid and responsive. You can roll between cover, take down guards silently with the arm blades, or just bypass them entirely. The level design is built to support whatever playstyle you want. If there's a locked door, you can hack the keypad, find the code on a pocket secretary, blow the door off its hinges, or find a vent to crawl through. There's always a vent. You will spend half this game crawling through air ducts, smelling the farts of office workers, and you love it because it makes you feel like a predator finding the perfect angle to strike. Also, the augmentation system is where the game really honestly shines. You aren't just unlocking stat boosts, you're unlocking superpowers. The Icarus landing system lets you jump off a roof and land in a shockwave that knocks everyone out. The clocking system lets you walk right past cameras and guards like a ghost. The social enhancer lets you analyze people's pheromones during conversations to manipulate them. It is deep and it rewards you for exploring and gathering XP. However, the energy system is a bit of nuisance. You have these batteries that power your abilities, and they only recharge the first cell automatically. For the rest, you have to eat energy bars. So you have the super advanced military cyborg who has to constantly stop to munch on a Snickers bar so he can punch a guy. It breaks the immersion slightly, but it's a small price to pay for how fun the abilities are. The only part of this game that is absolute hot garbage is the boss fights. If you are playing the original version, the boss fights are a miserable experiences that force you into direct combat even if you build your character entirely for stealth and hacking. You could go through the whole game without firing a single bullet, and then suddenly you're locked in a room with a guy with a minigun and you have to shoot him to death with a pistol you found on the floor. The director's cut fixed this by adding stealth options to the boss arenas, but it still feels like a blemish on an otherwise perfect experience. It betrays the core philosophy of the game, which is play how you want. But now, despite that, the game is a masterpiece. The world building is top tier. You can read everyone's emails and learn about the office drama, the conspiracy theories, and the daily lives of people in this dystopian future. It feels lived in, the story is engaging, and deals with transhumanism in a way that isn't totally pretentious. It makes you ask questions about the ethics of technology while you're busy throwing a vending machine at a god. Now, Alien Isolation, yeah, this game is just stressful as hell in a way most stealth games never even try to be. It's not fun stealth where you feel clever and powerful. It's exhausting stealth where you're constantly on edge, crouched behind some desk, staring at a motion tracker like it's gonna save your life, knowing damn well it probably won't. So the whole stealth system is built around sound and patience. You can't just run anywhere like an idiot. Running is basically an announcement. Every footstep matters, every door you open too fast matters. Bumping into stuff matters. You can learn really fast to slow the hell down. Half the time you're just standing still, listening, not even moving, just listening to footsteps and vents or that horrible metallic thud when the alien drops somewhere nearby. And the alien itself is the main reason this works. It's not just another enemy with a route you need to memorize. It feels like it's always around even when it's not. Sometimes it's actively haunting you. Sometimes it's wandering, sometimes it's just gone for a bit, and you never trust that silence. You don't outplay it, you survive it. That's the difference. You're not mastering stealth here, you're barely holding together. The tools don't make you powerful either. Stuff like noisemakers, flares, smoke bombs. They're all temporary solutions. They buy you time, that's it. The flamethrower, especially, is a great example. The first time you use it, you think, okay, cool, I can fight back now. Then you realize it just scares the alien off for a bit and burns through fuel insanely fast. Use it too much and you're screwed later. Everything is about resource management and restraint. And the station itself, Sevastopol, feels like it was designed specifically to make stealth miserable in a really good way. Tight hallways, dark rooms, vents everywhere, desks, and lockers that feel safe for about 5 seconds. Hiding is never a solution, it's just delaying the inevitable. The game constantly forces you to move through open areas where you feel completely exposed, and that's where the tension really kicks in. You also deal with humans and androids, which keeps things from getting repetitive. Humans are more traditional stealth enemies, sneaking around from them feels familiar, but the alien can show up at any time and ruin everything. Androids are slow, creepy, and relentless, forcing you to rethink how you approach areas because sneaking past them isn't always clean or easy. The game keeps layering threats so you never get comfortable. And when you die, it usually makes sense. It's not like you glitch, you lagged, the controls are clunky. It's because you made noise, you rushed, you stayed in one hiding spot too long, you trusted the locker too much. The game is punishing, but it's consistent. You learn how it works, even if you never fully feel in control. And that's the key thing. Even late into the game, when you have more gear, the alien is still terrifying. That fear never really goes away. Alien isolation never turns into a power fantasy. You are never cruising through areas like some stealth god. You are scraping by, constantly adapting, constantly stressed. It's stealth built around fear, patience, and survival instead of efficiency or style. So yeah, if you want a style game that actually makes you if you want a style game that actually makes your palms sweaty and forces you to slow down and think about every move, this is one of the best examples out there. It's uncomfortable, tense, and draining in the best way possible. Not a relaxing game at all, but easily one of the most memorable stealth experiences ever created. Shadow Tactics Blades of the Shogun. This game is single handedly responsible for reviving a genre that was deader than disco. Before this came out, the commando style real time tactics genre was basically extinct, buried in a shallow grave somewhere in the early 2000s. Then Mimi Games dug it up, slapped some samurai armor on it, and created something that is arguably better than the games that inspired it. It's brutal, unforgiving, and incredibly satisfying to play. The gameplay is essentially a top down puzzle game where the pieces are people you have to murder. Control a squad of 5 characters, each with their own very specific set of skills, and you have to navigate through maps that are absolutely infested with gods. The stealth here is binary. You're either unseen or you're dead. There's no combat in the traditional sense. If you get spotted, alarms go off, 50 gods spawn out of thin air, and you get turned into Swiss cheese. It forces you to play perfectly. You are constantly watching vision cones, checking patrol routes, and waiting for that 1 second window where nobody is looking so you can stab a guy and drag his body into a bush. Also, the game has a shadow mode. It's a feature where your brain really starts to expand. It lets you queue up one action for each character and then execute them all simultaneously with one button press. Seeing your plan come together perfectly is a dopamine hit unlike anything else. You queue up 3 kills, hit enter, and watch 3 guards drop at the same second. It makes you feel like a tactical genius, but getting there requires a lot of failure, and you will fail a lot. Also, this game embraces save scumming as a core mechanic. It literally puts a timer on the screen that yells at you if you haven't saved in the last minute. It knows you are going to mess up. It knows you are trying to do something stupid, like jumping off a roof onto a samurai only to realize he has too much health and he just cuts you in half. So you quick save, you try, you die, you quick load, you try, you die, and you try something else. It removes the frustration of losing progress and lets you treat every encounter like a science experiment where the variables are shurikens and bear traps. Also, the art style is clean and readable, which is crucial for a game where seeing a god behind a tree is the difference between life and death. Also, the art style is clean and readable, which is crucial for a game where seeing a god behind a tree is the difference between life and death. The controls are snappy on PC, though you really can play this without a controller. It's a niche game for a niche audience, but if you have even a passing interest in strategy or stealth, this is a must play. It respects your time by being difficult but fair. It doesn't cheat. If you die because you didn't see the god on the tower. Desperados 3. Now, this is the absolute peak of real time tactics genre. You're trading shurikens for revolvers and samurai swords for bear traps, but the core DNA is the same high stakes puzzle solving that makes your brain hurt in a really good way. The gameplay loop is identical to Shadow Tactics but refined to a mirror shine. You control a squad of 5 misfits in the Wild West, and you have to navigate massive maps filled with gods who have the vision of eagles and the patience of saints. The stealth here is precise. You are constantly managing view cones, checking noise levels, and timing your movements down to milliseconds. If a god sees footprints in the mud, he investigates. If a god notices his buddy is missing from his post, he gets suspicious. It forces you to clean up your mess. You can't just kill everyone and leave a pile of bodies like you're playing Hitman on easy mode. You have to hide them in bushes, dump them in wells, or feed them to the hogs. The characters are the best part. John Cooper is your standard cowboy with a throwing knife and ability to shoot 2 people at once, which is cool, but he's the least interesting one compared to the freaks he hangs out with. You have Hector, who is just a large man with a giant bear trap he named Bianco. He's my favorite because he can whistle to lure. He's my favorite because he can whistle to lure guards into the trap and then he just laughs. A simple, honest walk. Then you have Doc McCoy, who is a sniper and can throw his bag down as a distraction. When guards open it, it releases gas and knocks him out. It's pretty hilarious and every single time. Also, the showdown mode is the glue that holds it all together. You can pause time completely, issue commands to every character, and then unpause to watch the chaos unfold. It turns the game into a choreographed ballet of violence. You have Cooper throwing a knife, McCoy snapping a guy in a tower, and Hector shotgunning 3 people all at once, all happening in a perfect sync. When it works, you feel like a genius. When it fails, it will fail. You just hit that quick reload button. The game reminds you to save constantly. It knows you're going to screw up. It wants you to experiment and fail so you can learn the systems. The level design is spectacular. The maps are huge and full of environmental kills. You can drop church bells on people, push rocks into them, or rig a dynamited wall to explode. The train level is a standout where the environment is moving and you have to walk around the geometry of the train cars. Also, the banter between the characters is also surprisingly good. They actually feel like a team that grows to respect each other, not just a random assortment of units. Now, it's a difficult game, it will kick your teeth if you try to rush it. But it's really fair. Every time you die, you know exactly why. It's because you got greedy or you didn't see the one guy on the balcony. Desperados 3 is a masterpiece that proves the genre is alive and well. It's a must play. Now, The Last of Us Part 2, this is some of the best third person stealth or third person combat gameplay you'll ever have. Like some of the smoothest third person stealth I've ever played. Everything just flows in a way that makes it really hard to go back to the other games without feeling like they're stiff or clunky. The first thing you notice is how good the moment feels. Being prone, crawling under cars, slipping through grass, sliding between cars, vaulting over stuff, it all just works. There's no friction. You're never fighting the controls. When you mess up, it feels like you're falling at the games. That alone puts it way above a lot of stealth games that technically have good ideas but feel like ass to actually play. Now, the stealth itself changes constantly depending on the level and enemy type. Some areas are wide open with tall grass where you're crawling around, slowly repositioning, picking people off one by one. Other areas are tight indoor spaces, where sound becomes the biggest problem and one mistake snowballs instantly. You're always adapting, you're never doing the exact same thing for too long. Enemy AI is where the game really flexes. Human enemies communicate, call out names when someone goes down, spread out, flank you, flush you out. It feels chaotic very naturally. You don't feel like you're exploiting dumb behavior, you feel like you are barely staying ahead of people who are actively trying to kill you. Dogs especially add another layer because now scent matters. You can't just sit in one spot forever. You constantly move, doubling down, breaking stuff, and breaking line of sight. And then the infected, which completely changed the stealth rules. Clickers force you to move slowly and deliberately, timing every throw and every step. Runners create noise and panic. Stalkers are just annoying fuckers because they actually hide and wait for you. Switching between human stealth and infected stealth keeps the pacing sharp because you're using the same mechanics in two different ways. Also, the weapons and tools feed directly into stealth instead of replacing it. Silencers are temporary, ammo is scarce, crafting is limited. You're always making decisions like whether it's worth using a bottle now or saving it for later. Even melee feels weighty and desperate, which fits perfectly. Nothing feels overpowered for long. And I think the level design deserves a lot of credit too. So many areas are built with multiple routes, vertical paths, hidden spaces, and enough freedom to approach encounters in different ways. Yeah, you're like encouraged to experiment, to move, to think about positioning instead of just crouching behind the nearest object and waiting. I think The Last of Us Part 2 is one of those rare games where stealth, movement, animation, and AI all come together perfectly. It feels polished to an absurd degree. Well, almost like every other Naughty Dog game, they always push the boundaries. Every transition is smooth, every action feels intentional, and the game constantly adapts to how you play instead of forcing you into one rigid style. Next game is Uncharted 4. Okay, I'm sneaking in Uncharted 4 because why the fuck not? It's my favorite series, but hey, hear me out. This is not a stealth game. This is loud, chaotic, cinematic, pretty much opposite insanity most of the time. Explosions, collapsing buildings, shootouts that turn into absolute messes. That's the core of it. But it still deserves a quick mention here because when the game does slow down unless you play stealthy, it actually does it really well. Not at the same degree of Last of Us 2 or even Part 1 at all, but it's a different kind of vibe here. So there are like a handful of open combat sections where you're not immediately shoved into a shootout. You're dropped into these wide areas with tall grass, multiple elevations, rooftops, cliffs, and patrols moving around naturally. In those moments, the game lets you choose. You can go light in five. You can go loud in 5 seconds, or you can actually take your time and clear the area quietly. And it feels surprisingly good when you do. The stealth itself is simple but clean. Movement is smooth, animations are polished, and takedowns feel satisfying without being overcomplicated. You're not juggling a million systems, you're just watching patrol routes, sticking to cover, using elevation, and picking people off when it makes sense. It never feels janky or half-baked, which is more than you can say for a lot of games these days, and they try a lot harder to be stealth-focused, unlike Uncharted. And one of the things that's really helped is the level design. Those semi open areas are designed in a way where stealth actually feels intentional. Tall grasses work, flanking routes exist, vertical paths matter, and you are rewarded for repositioning instead of just crouching in one spot. You can mess up, recover, relocate, and keep going without the whole thing falling apart. And I mean, it's Uncharted, so even when things inevitably go loud, it doesn't feel like stealth failed. It just feels like a natural escalation. You try to be quiet, it didn't fully work out. Now it's chaos. That transition feels smooth, which is something Uncharted does better than most games. There's no hard switch, honestly, it just rolls. So yeah, I'm not talking about Uncharted 4 here because it's some stealth benchmark. It's here because it shows how good stealth can feel even in a game that's primarily about spectacle. The set pieces are insane, the pacing is fantastic, and those quieter sections where you are sneaking through enemy camps are a nice change of pace that absolutely deserve a nod. Even when it's not trying to be stealthy, the game still feels polished as hell, and that's why it stands out. Ghost of Tsushima. Now, this is the Assassin's Creed game that everyone wanted for 15 years. But Ubisoft was too busy making games with RPG mechanics nobody really actually asked for. But Sucker Punch came in and completely embarrassed the competition by making an open world samurai game that actually respects your time and your eyeballs. It is visually one of the most stunning things I've ever seen. You could pause the game at any random moment. You could pause the game at any random moment, take a screenshot, and frame it on your wall, and people would think you're a cultured art collector instead of a guy who just spent 4 hours chasing fox to find a shrine. So, the gameplay loop is built around this internal conflict between being an honorable samurai and being the ghost, which is just a fancy word for a ninja who fights dirty. The game really wants you to feel bad about using stealth. Your uncle Shimura is constantly lecturing you about honor and looking people in the eye when you kill them, acting like a total boomer who can't adapt to the fucking change. But let's be real, the honorable path is great, but the stealth path is where the actual fun is. The stealth here is violent, efficient, and incredibly satisfying. You are not just poking people around, you're dismembering them from the shadows. You aren't just poking people around, you're actually dismembering them from the shadows. You have wind chimes to distract gods, firecrackers to group them up, and sticky bombs to turn them into red mist. The smoke bomb is the MVP here. You can drop one in the middle of a fight, vanish instantly, and then chain assassinate 3 people before the smoke even clears. It feels unfair in the best way. The chain assassination ability lets you wipe out an entire patrol in seconds. You jump down from a roof, stab one guy, and the game lets you teleport slightly to the next guy and the next guy in a fluid motion that looks like a dance of death. It's silky smooth. And one of the best parts of the stealth is the freaking terrifying mechanic, man. Like as you become more of the ghost, enemies start to fear you. They can drop down, brutalize the commander, and the other Mongols will just fall to the ground in terror or drop their weapons and run away. It makes you feel like an actual mythical monster. Most stealth games just have enemies go back to their patrol routes after they see a dead body like nothing happened. But here, they shake in their boots. It sells the fantasy that you are this legendary demon that's haunting the island. Even the navigation feeds into the immersion. There's no ugly minimap cluttering the screen with 1,000 icons. You just swipe on the controller touchpad and the wind blows into the direction of your objective. It's such a simple, genius design choice that keeps your eyes on the world instead of a UI element in the corner. The combat, when you do get caught, is also top tier. You switch stances on the fly to counter different enemies, water stands for shields, stone for swords, wind for spears, it flows perfectly. Also, the story is pretty good too. It isn't just like kill the bad guy. It's about a man losing his identity and his family to save his home. Jin Sakai is a great protagonist because you can see him struggle with every decision. He knows what he's doing is wrong by his code, but he does it anyway because it works. Ghost of Tsushima is a masterpiece. It cuts the fat, delivers on the fantasy, and feels incredible to play from start to finish. Next, we have Batman Arkham City. This is the superhero game that every other superhero game wishes it could be when it grows up. It took everything that was great about Arkham Asylum and injected it with enough steroids to kill a freaking horse. Rocksteady looked at the first game and said, okay, that was cool, but what if we let you fly? And they created arguably one of the best open world traversal system ever made. You're gliding, diving, and grappling with momentum that makes you feel physically powerful. You can dive bomb, pull up at the last second to catch the wind, and soar across the entire map without ever touching the ground. Is the closest any of us will ever get to be actually being Batman without needing $1 billion. So, the stealth here is what we call predator encounters. And the name is accurate because you aren't hiding, you're haunting. You're stuck in a room with armed thugs, and instead of being afraid of their guns, you make them afraid of the dark. The game gives you a toolbox of gadgets that is just unfair. You can hang upside down from gargoyles, spray explosive gel on the wall to blow them inward onto unsuspecting goons, use a jammer to disable their guns, or throw a batarang to knock them over. But the best part is the fear mechanic. You have this detective vision that lets you see their heart rates. At the start, they are calm, talking trash, but as you pick them off one by one, their heart rates spike. They start panicking, shooting at shadows, screaming at each other. You are literally Batman playing a psychological warfare with criminals, and it's satisfying in a really primal way. Now, the combat is the free flow system, and it's still the gold standard for beat 'em ups. This is like a rhythm. You're bouncing between enemies like a pinball of justice, breaking arms and legs with a crunch that you can feel in your teeth when you get a high combo going and you're countering three guys at once while throwing back ranks in the middle of a backflip, and you enter a flow state that's pure gaming. It makes you feel like a martial arts god, and the sheer amount of content in this prison city is ridiculous. You have the main story, which is fantastic and has the best Joker performance ever by Mark Hamill, and then you have like a million side quests evolving almost every villain in Batman's rogue gallery. The Riddler trophies are back, and while there are too many of them, like seriously, who has the time to hide 400 trophies? Solving the puzzles actually make you feel smart. You have to use every single gadget you have in creative ways. You need to use the remote control batarang to hit switches, the line launcher to create tight tropes, and the cryptographic sequencer to hack terminals. It forces you to master your equipments. The boss fights are also a huge step up. The Mr. Freeze fight is legendary. You cannot use the same move on him twice. If you do a silent takedown, he freezes the gargoyles. If you attack through a grate, he freezes the floor. It forces you to adapt and use every stealth mechanic in the book. It's a brilliant game design that tests your knowledge of the mechanics rather than your ability to spam a button. So, overall, Arkham City is a dark, gritty, and atmospheric masterpiece. The city itself feels like a character, a rotting, gothic nightmare that's so fun to explore. It respects the source material while doing its own thing. Honestly, one of the very few games that lives up to the hype and exceeds it. Ghost Recon Wildlands. Now, this one's interesting because it's not tied scripted stealth. It's a big, messy open world stealth where the game just throws an entire country at you and says, well, you can do whatever you want, and somehow it mostly works. So, the stealth here is all about freedom. You're dropped into these massive areas with outposts, roads, patrols, snipers, generators, alarms, and like 20 different ways for things to go wrong. You can sit on a hill a mile away with a drone and tag every enemy like a psycho. Or you can go in on foot at night, cutting lights, sneaking through bushes, grabbing guys and dragging them away. The game doesn't force a correct approach. It lets you make a plan and watch it fall apart or execute slowly. Also, what makes violence stealth fun is how readable everything is. Enemy awareness makes sense, line of sight matters, sound matters, time of the day matters, night missions feel generally different because visibility drops and enemies rely more on flashlights and radios. Suppressors actually do what you expect, but if you start popping too many guys too fast, someone's gonna notice something's wrong. Alarms are a real threat. Let one guy go off, and suddenly you're dealing with reinforcements, helicopters, and a whole lot of chaos. Also, the squad also plays a big role in stealth. You can sink shot multiple enemies at once, clear rooftops, take out snipers, and clean up a base almost surgically if you plan it right. When it works, it feels incredibly clean. When it doesn't, it turns into a full blown firefight in about 3 seconds. The open world is both the best and worst part. On one hand, the freedom is great. You can approach from literally any direction, pull back if things get messy, or just wait for the perfect moment. On the other hand, the AI can be inconsistent, and sometimes stealth breaks in ways that feel a bit dumb. A random civilian sees something, a patrol spawns weirdly, or enemies suddenly know exactly where you are. It's not perfect, but the scale kind of makes up for it. What Wildlands nails is that feeling of being a ghost. Hitting a base at night, lights out, no alarms, bodies hidden, chopper flying overhead, while you're crawling through grass, that stuff hits hard. It's not about the precision like a puzzle stealth game, it's about preparation and patience. So, Ghost Recon Wildlands, this isn't a stealth game where you reload a checkpoint every mistake. It's a stealth game where you adapt. If things go loud, you deal with it. If a plan fails, you improvise it. The game encourages that mindset instead of punishing you for not being perfect. Now, yeah, it's a rough around the edges game, but when its stealth works, it really works well. It gives you the space to play tactically, think ahead, and approach situations your own way. It's not elegant, it's not super tight, but it's one of the best examples of large scale open world style games done right. Next, we have Assassin's Creed Syndicate. Now, this is the black sheep of the franchise because it had the misfortune of coming out right after the absolute disaster that Unity was at launch. So everyone just kind of ignored it or treated it like a bad smell in an elevator. But that is a mistake because Syndicate actually has one of the most refined and enjoyable stealth systems in the entire series. It takes the ideas from Unity and actually makes them work without the game crashing or your character's face melting off like a freaking wax candle. So, the biggest game changer here is the dedicated stealth button. It sounds stupid that this is a feature worth praising, but in previous games, the game decided when you were crouching, but here you press a button, Jacob or Evie snaps their hood up, crouches down, and enters stalker mode. It gives you immediate control over your state. You feel cooler just doing it. It separates the stuff it like from social stealth to you go from social stealth to I'm going to stab you in the neck perfectly. Also, the kidnapping mechanic is the best addition they ever made, and I have no idea why they removed it in later games. You can grab a guard, twist his arm behind his back, and force him to walk with you. And as long as you keep moving and don't act suspicious, other guards just think you're escorting a prisoner or a drunk friend. It allows you to walk right through the front door of a restricted area past 50 guys while using their own body as the human shield. It's hilarious and tense at the same time because if you get too close, they realize something is wrong. It turns sledge stealth into this really intimate dance where you're whispering threats into a guy's ear while walking him to death. Then you have the rope launcher. Purists hate this thing because they say it ruins the parkour. But let's be real, climbing a flat brick wall for 5 minutes isn't fun. The rope launcher basically turns you into Victorian Batman. You can zip from a rooftop to chimney instantly. It opens the stealth so much because you can create your own zip lines directly over a target, air assassinate them, and then zip back up before the body hits the floor. You are an apex predator, not someone struggling with the geometry of the game. The black box missions return here too, and they are fantastic. These are the main assassination missions where the game just drops you in a massive location like the Tower of London or a hospital and says, kill this guy, I don't care how. You can find unique kill opportunities, you can hide in a fake corpse on a gurney to get wheeled into the room with the target. You can hide in a fake corpse on a gurney to get wheeled into the room with the target. Rise up like a friggin' Undertaker and stab him. It rewards you for exploring and finding these cinematic kills instead of just rushing in. You also have to give credits to the character split. Jacob is a meathead brawler, but Evie is a stealth god. Her skill trees allow her to carry more throwing knives, which are one hit kills to the head. Thank God, and she has an ability when, if she stands still in stealth mode, she becomes nearly invisible. It's overpowered, sure, but it makes you feel like a ghost. Syndicate is goofy, the story is light, but the actual act of sneaking around London, kidnapping guards, and ziplining away is peak Assassin's Creed. It's a sleeper hit that deserves way more respect than it gets, especially in the stealth. Now, a Plague Tale Requiem. A Plague Tale Requiem is what happens when you take the stealth sections of The Last of Us, transport them to medieval France, and then inject with a lethal dose of bubonic plague. It is not strictly a stealth game in the traditional sense. You're not Sam Fisher wearing night vision goggles, but if you try to play like this, but if you try to play this like Call of Duty, you're going to get your cheeks clapped instantly. You play as Amicia, who has basically evolved from a scared teenager in the first game into a medieval John Wick with the sling. The stealth here is stressful. It is high stakes, and it's honestly some of the most intense don't get caught gameplay I've ever experienced in a game for a long time. You're constantly outnumbered, outgunned, and usually navigating through a sea of literal filth and disease. The stealth isn't about feeling powerful, it's about basically surviving by the skin of your teeth while protecting your little brother who is basically a walking biological weapon of mass destruction. The actual mechanics of the sneaking are a massive step up from the first game, in a sense. In the first one, if a god saw you, it was basically game over. You are just dead meat. Here, you actually have options. You can slip back into the shadows, break line of sight, or if you're feeling spicy, you can use alchemy to craft different ammo types to mess with the AI. And that's where the real fun of the stealth comes in. It's about the puzzle solving with murder. You can extinguish lights, torches the gods are holding, or torches nearby them and the rats will freaking eat him alive, which is arguably the most brutal way to take someone out in a video game history. Now imagine a god standing in the middle of the courtyard with a torch on the wall or one on his hand. He's begging you that please don't. He's begging you to please do not extinguish it, begging for his life. That if you extinguish his torch, he's gonna be eaten alive from a filthy, ratty monsters, I mean rat monsters, running around him. But you do it anyway because he's a fucking asshole. Also, the rats are the star of the show here. They're just a hazard. They're a tool for your stealth. You are manipulating the environment, moving light sources, and hurrying these little furry demons to clear a path for you. It adds this layer of strategy that most stealth games lack, where you are usually just worried about vision cones. Here, you are worried about vision cones and also the floor turning into a meat grinder. However, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. The AI can still be a bit of a goober sometimes. You'll have moments where a god stares right at you while you're crouching behind a crate that barely covers your knees, and he just decides you must be a hell destination at walks away. Must be weird. Vince Allen. But anyway, the tools that you have for the stealth, the gameplay, is a game changer, especially the crossbow. It lets you play stealth aggressively. You can pick off helmetless enemies silently and keep moving, but the game punishes you for trying to kill everyone. Resources are scarce, bullets are limited, so you're forced to be calculating. You can't just clear a room for the fun of it unless you want to be left with nothing but a rock and a prayer for the next encounter. And the pacing of these stealth sections is masterful. It breaks up the walk in and talk in with these pockets of pure tension where you're holding your breath hoping Yuga doesn't say something stupid and give away your position. And also visually this game is a graphical powerhouse. Also graphically, visually this game is a freaking powerhouse. It's stunning. The lighting, the textures, the way the rats move like a fluid simulation, it's all top tier. But that fidelity comes at a cost, specifically to your frame rate. When the rats really start flooding the screen, you can feel your PC or console sweating. But honestly, the performance hit is almost worth it for the spectacle. Also, the story is also one of the best in any game, period. It's sad, measurable journey, but it's so well written that you're invested in every stealth, every encounter, every cutscene, and you genuinely care about these characters. So yeah, this is not a sandbox style game at all, especially not like our first two entries of Hitman or Metal Gear at all. This is entirely different. But I just wanted to mention it because how stealth focused this linear gameplay is. Next game is Aragami. Here you play as a vengeful spirit that's quite literally made of shadows, which sounds like the edgy backstory of a deviant ROC created by a 14-year-old, but it actually works really well here. This is a pure stealth game in the strictest sense of the word. A lot of games these days claim to be stealth games, but they're actually just action games where you can crouch sometimes. In Aragami, you're a class cannon. Actually, calling you a cannon is generous. You're more like a wet tissue paper cannon. If an enemy sneezes in your general direction or shines a flashlight on you, you just disintegrate. There is no blocking, there's no parrying, there is no press X to counter. If you get seen, you get put in the dirt. This forces you to play the game like it was intended, stalking through the darkness and terrified of the light like a Discord moderator leaving his basement for the first time in 3 years. The core mechanic is the shadow leap ability where you can teleport to any shadow in range. It feels incredibly snappy and satisfying to just zip around the map. You are constantly scanning the environments for patches of darkness to recharge your shadow essence, which creates this really fun rhythm of movement. The floor is lava, but instead of lava, it's bright light that strips you of your powers and leaves you naked and afraid. You can create your own shadows temporarily to bridge gaps, which makes you feel like a big brain tactician. When you pull it off, you're hopping from roof to roof, dropping down on unsuspecting guards and swallowing them into the abyss. It scratches that itch for old school Tenku gameplay that the industry largely ignored for years. It doesn't try to be a massive open world RPG with crafting systems and fishing minigames. It knows exactly what it is. A game about stabbing dudes in the back and looking cool doing it.